Please, doctor, she begged, her voice cracking. My sister's life is in your hands. I calmly reviewed her file, then looked up, letting the silence hang in the air. She didn't recognize me. Before we discuss treatment, I said coldly, tell me about the last time she was sick. Hey Reddit. I'm writing this for my best friend. Let's call him Mark. He's in a really dark place and can't even begin to process this. So I'm laying it all out here for some outside perspective. So, Mark 22M and his girlfriend, Sarah 25F, have been together for a year and a half. Even lived together for the last year. It's been serious. Like any couple. They've had their issues. But they were always the type to talk things through and work on it. One of the biggest things they established were clear boundaries with people from their pasts. This is super important. Sarah had a situationship with this doctor guy before she met Mark. Because of that history, Mark laid down a clear line in the sand early on. The doctor was off limits. No any unknown hangouts. No leaning on him for support. Nothing. She agreed it was a reasonable boundary. Fast forward to a few weeks ago. The absolute worst happens. Sarah's sister gets a cancer diagnosis. It's devastating news. And she immediately has to drive back to her hometown to be with her family at the hospital. Mark was 100% in supportive boyfriend mode. Telling her to take all the time she needs. He'll handle everything at their apartment. Just focus on her family. But here's where the hypocrisy starts. And it's just staggering. Literally 2 days before she left, they had a conversation. Sarah told Mark, hey, I need you to promise me you won't go over to Jessica's house while I'm gone. Jessica's a mutual friend. And Mark was planning on stopping by for a game night where her entire family would be present. He was confused. My family will be there. It's not like that. He told her. She didn't care. She said it made her insecure. Mark's first instinct was to argue. But then he thought. Her sister was just diagnosed. This isn't a battle worth fighting. His goal was just to reduce her stress. So he just said. Okay. Done. I won't go. He agreed to her boundary. No questions asked. Then she goes to the hospital. For 4 days straight. She's running on fumes, barely eating. Sleeping in a chair. An absolute emotional and physical wreck. The hospital facilities were grim. And she couldn't even get a proper shower. Her parents, seeing how drained she was, offered a solution. That same doctor, the one who was strictly off limits, was a family friend. His apartment was 5 minutes from the hospital. Her parents, who had no clue about their past situationship, told her, just go crash at his place. You need a real bed and a shower. She knew what Mark's answer would be. She knew it would be a hard no. So, what did she do? She just didn't tell him? She made the choice to go stay at the one person's apartment who was supposed to be a non-negotiable boundary. And she just let Mark believe she was staying with family. He was texting her, telling her he was proud of how strong she was being. Completely oblivious. He thought he was being the perfect, supportive partner, trusting her completely while she was navigating this family nightmare. He had no idea that she had already shattered that trust. So, he's back home, respecting her wishes by avoiding his friend, while she's staying alone in an apartment with the one guy she promised she'd keep her distance from. And this is just the beginning. It gets so much worse. I'll explain what happened next in the next part. So, she's at the doctor's apartment. Remember, this is the guy who was the one non-negotiable, off-limits person in her life. According to the story she eventually told Mark, she was there trying to decompress when she got a call from the hospital. It was bad news, a complication with her sister's treatment. The stress of the last few days just boiled over, and she completely broke down. She said she was just sobbing on the couch, totally overwhelmed. This is when the doctor made his move. He sat next to her, put an arm around her in a side hug, and started patting her back. You know, classic comforting stuff. And then, in the middle of her breakdown, he leaned in and kissed her. She claims it was for less than a second. That she immediately pulled back and said, "No. What are you doing?" But the line was already crossed. And even if you believe her version 100%, what the guy said to her later is just as damning. A little while after the kiss, he looks at her and says, "It's so hard not to have sex with you." He didn't just misread a signal. He was actively and verbally trying to sleep with his friend's grieving girlfriend. After that happened, she had a choice. She could have called Mark right then and there and told him what happened. It would have been a horrible, messy conversation. But it would have been honest. She chose not to. Instead, a day or two later, Mark arrived. He dropped everything at home, packed a bag, and drove 3 hours to be with her and her family. For 10 solid days. He was the model boyfriend. His one and only goal was to take any possible burden off her shoulders. He did grocery runs for her parents. He sat in the hospital waiting room for hours, just so she wouldn't have to be there alone. He cooked dinner for her whole family so they could have one normal meal together. He held her when she cried about her sister, telling her, "We'll get through this. You're not alone. I'm right here." For 10 days. He was right there. He slept in her childhood bed, held her hand, and listened to her fears. And for 10 days, she looked him in the eye and said nothing. She let him comfort her, love her, and support her, all while she was actively hiding the fact that she had not only broken their biggest rule but had been kissed by the one guy she promised to stay away from. He told me he remembers one night. They were just lying there, and he was telling her how much he admired her strength. She just nodded and kissed him. Looking back on it now, that memory makes him physically sick. He was pouring every ounce of his emotional energy into supporting her, thinking they were a team. But he was the only one on the field. He was trying to get them through a crisis, while she was just trying to get herself through it by burying a secret. The betrayal wasn't just the kiss. It was every single moment for those 10 days that she chose to lie to him with her silence. How do you even begin to forgive that? So, Mark comes home after those 10 days. Still completely in the dark. He's exhausted. But he feels like he did the right thing by being there for her. For 2 more weeks, things are weirdly normal. They talk on the phone. He asks for updates on her sister. And she tells him she misses him. It was all a lie. Then, last night, she finally broke. Over a FaceTime call. She had this look on her face. And he knew something was wrong. He asked if it was about her sister. And she just shook her head. "I have to tell you something," she said, her voice barely a whisper. And then it all came out. The story about staying at the doctor's place. The emotional breakdown. The kiss. And the disgusting comment he made afterward. Mark just sat there. Silent. His first thought wasn't even about the kiss itself. It was a cold, sharp calculation of the timeline. His brain was trying to process the raw data. She let me drive down there. She let me stay in her house for 10 days. She let me hold her. She knew this entire time. He listened as she gave all the justifications he expected to hear. I was a complete wreck. I wasn't thinking straight. It meant nothing. I promise. I pushed him away immediately. But her words were just noise. The fact is, she didn't tell him when it happened. She didn't tell him during the 10 days he was sleeping next to her. She waited 2 full weeks, after he had poured his heart and soul into supporting her. And that's what's destroying him. At that moment, he realized this wasn't about a single, impulsive mistake born from grief. This was about a series of thousands of choices she made to deceive him. Every minute of every one of those days. Now, he's a ghost. He's just pacing our apartment. Not eating. Not sleeping. He keeps saying he can't get the image out of his head. It's not just one image. It's a whole movie he's directing on a loop. He sees them on the couch. He sees the comforting hug turning into something else. He hears the guy's voice saying, "It's so hard not to have sex with you." He's stuck wondering what else happened. What she might be leaving out. Because if she could lie for 2 weeks, what's one more detail? He's completely torn. One part of his brain is screaming that her sister has cancer. She was under a level of stress he can't possibly imagine. And maybe this one horrific lapse in judgment should be understood in that context. But the other, much louder part can't get past the hypocrisy. The fact that she held him to a standard no visiting a female friend even with family around that she herself shattered in the worst way possible. He agreed to her boundary to ease her mind during a crisis. And she betrayed his trust during that same crisis. So, this is where he's at. He's stuck between the woman he loves, who is going through a terrible family tragedy, and the undeniable fact that she fundamentally betrayed him and then lied about it to his face for weeks. Is the context of her sister's illness enough to even consider forgiveness? Or does the deliberate, prolonged deception make this impossible to come back from? How can he ever trust her again? What would you do?